Welcome to Financials with Ahau. We're continuing with the Investing in Africa series, and our focus currently is Kenya. So, we started talking about the stock market, and now I'd like us to move into an area that's quite interesting. Why? Because it's something that's really big on the African continent, and I'm sure we're going to touch on it as we talk through the different countries and try to understand what does it mean when we talk about investing in this area. And I think if you can see my environment, you are already familiar with what I'm going to talk about. The big L, land. What does it mean to invest in land in Kenya? What is the land history in Kenya? And why are people so interested in investing in land? And why or why not should we invest in land? So first of all, let's start with understanding the history of land in Kenya. According to how this nation and this continent was, it was one big home, and all of that existed until around the time that colonization happened. Yes, key marker in our history. And when that happened, then they became what was called like the demarcation of land, and now nations were formed and things like that. So when that happened, for a long time, land that belonged to certain communities went away in terms of they became settlements, they developed into towns. So the first part of land now that we can look at is what was then known as the ancestral land, which was actually community land. Like literally it belonged to our people and the people of that community. But over time, because of that change, then people now had to acquire land, which was still part of their inheritance as a family, but now it was land where they had moved. So it became settlement land. Some of the people whose properties came into the ownership of the colonial rule, their land that belonged to their families became inaccessible to them. So then we moved to settlement land, and now these people grew up there, their families were set up there, and that became their home. The next land was many families grew, many families expanded, children, sons, and for the longest until like I would say even the 2000, land was traditionally passed on to sons. So the number of sons you were was the amount of land you needed to have. So the more the sons, the more the land. So now we moved into the purchasing of land so that then one could settle their sons. Over time, that has now grown because also land has been opened up to daughters. But an even greater thing is accessibility to land in different places in the country has become key because you find that maybe you have an interest in something. I want to farm. I live in Nairobi. I don't have farmland in Nairobi. So I go and I buy land in Kisii so that I can be able to farm. I'm interested in farming bananas. Or I want to farm maize. I go and buy land in Kitale. Or I want to keep cattle. I go and buy land in Narok. So that has also expanded how land has been acquired and the state of land in this country. One of the most important things is you can circle back to ancestral land. That land was typically small pieces just for people to be able to build their houses. Yes, some families have had tracts and tracts of land, but most of that land was small pieces for inheritance and settlement. Same with the settlement lands. They were just lands that allowed people to have a place to call home. But when we come now to the lands that people have purchased in the recent past, now that became land that was commercial, that was intentional for a particular purpose, and that they would build and buy tracts and tracts of land. And for me, when we think about buying land, those are the things that I want you to have in mind. Like, why are you buying land? That's the first reason. Because we can buy land and it stays idle. And I know in Kenya they've been trying to even put a tax on land that is not being used. So, first reason, why are you buying the land? Second thing, where are you buying the land? Third thing, what are the due diligences and processes? We know that there are people who sell land that's not theirs. We know that there are people who sell land on places that land should not be accessed or sold. So also, where are you buying land? Then the fourth thing, are you following due process in terms of documentation? Because yes, you can say, oh, I bought this land, it's mine. Recently, I was having a conversation with a friend, and believe it or not, property that was bought, we can't even tell how many years ago, has never been transferred. I won't even go far. Even my own space, I'm sure there's land amongst my family that has never been transferred. So also ensuring that documentation is well done. And the fifth thing is putting that land to the use you want to put it to. So yes, you know why. Yes, you know where. Yes, you know how. Yes, you know that your documentation is well done. But now putting that land into use, because then is when you'll be able to begin to have property income. So let's pause there. I want us to think around those. even as you're just excited about this land. It's amazing. I remember I was reading a quote that when people were really exhausted as to what else they could buy, they thought to buy land, only to realize that was the first thing they should have been buying. But what's the strategy behind why you're buying the land? It has to be productive for you. Thank you for listening. Keep writing. You want to do this land investment, do your homework, keep writing, and when you settle into it, it becomes a worthwhile. Talk to you soon again. God bless you. It's a how.